everybody, this is Jennifer J. I am back for part 22, and if you've been watching, you know the drill, but if you haven't been watching, these are a continuing saga, so you're going to want to go back and start with part 1. I think if you're on your computer, it's way over at the right, but I think if you're on a cell phone, you've got to just scroll all the way down to the bottom. So to get 1, 2 is out of order. For some reason, I uploaded it at a wrong time or something, and it's not in order, but it is there, so don't miss that one. If you haven't subscribed yet, I hope that you will, and we will continue where we started, or where we left off. I had just come to Arizona, so last time we talked, I had just come to Arizona and went to church and joined the church and all that. So that was like my first full day here, was Sunday, March 6th. And during that week, I've got to tell you, because I'm staying at my sister's house, right? But my sister is not here. And so she's in Kansas because she's just had a new grandbaby, and he's in the NICU and she's not leaving, right? So I'm in Arizona and I'm in her new house with all her things and all her dishes, and I mean, everything's boxed up, but I'm getting into stuff and I'm here. The thing that isn't here is internet. So there's also no cell towers. I went to the Verizon store and they said, you're just kind of out of luck. They don't go out that far and people have really poor service out there. So we're kind of on the edge of nowhere. My phone did not work in her house. Absolutely did not work. You guys, I had no television, no music, no social media, no apps on my phone, nothing. I couldn't get, phone calls got dropped. I tried to talk to my sister one night. Our call got dropped so many times we gave up even talking. Texts wouldn't go out. I mean, we're talking, I'm here with God, period. And he knew it was going to be that way, right? I didn't know it was going to be that way. My niece, bless her heart, she had that room for me. She's only about a 3-minute drive away. So I would get up in the morning and I would go to her house to work where I could get internet. And then I would leave and come back here for the evening. Now I got to tell you, there were a lot of evenings I went back over there because you just drive yourself crazy sitting in quiet for hours on end, day after day after day. But for that first week that I was here, I spent a lot of time in prayer and in the Word and complaining. If you were on my social media, gosh, you probably saw me or read my stories of me pulling my hair out because I couldn't get anything. And it's interesting though, because one particular person that God had laid on my heart through all of this, that person, it's one of my friends, and you guys might know them, so I don't want to say their name, but they know who they are. That would be the only person my phone would work and I could text that person. No other, I couldn't text my kids, I couldn't text my sisters, and I could text this person. And I would say sometimes, like, you are literally the only person I can talk to. So please answer me, please respond, because literally I can't talk to anybody else. And they would, so that was nice. But that's how that first week was really monotonous, because I had no cell coverage and no internet. And my brother-in-law, he needs the internet for his job, and he has lots of different things he needs to run. So he wanted to really research companies and get the company that he wanted before they signed a contract to have internet, which I totally understood. So they weren't planning on getting internet until they got here. So we're talking, they weren't going to be here till May, and this is March. And so I was spending a lot of time alone and a lot of time at my niece's, maybe more than she wanted. I would go walking a lot. If I went down, there's a community park and pond and nice walking trails and stuff. And if I would go down there, I could get service. So I would go walk a lot in the evening. But after dark, they don't do daylight savings time here. So, but still, once it would get dark, you didn't want to be out, walking around the pond. So there was just a lot of hours to fill. And I would get in my head sometimes, and that was not a good place to be. So one night, it was March 15th, I'd been here a week, and I heard my phone ding, and my phone doesn't work here. So I'm like jumping up and running to my phone, like, what is it? What is it? And it was a TD Jakes YouTube that I subscribed to his channel, and there was a new sermon that had got loaded, and it was notifying me. And I'm like, my phone is working. So immediately, you know, I'm going to try to text people. I'm trying to go to social media. I'm trying all the things, right? Nothing works. The bar across the bottom just says, couldn't refresh feed, couldn't refresh feed. And texts weren't going out, and nothing was working. So I went, well, let's click on this notification I got and see if that works. It did. So I got out my notebook, and you guys, that sermon was over an hour and a half long, and my phone worked through the whole entire thing. And when it was over, you guessed it, it quit. Nothing worked again, except my one friend that I could text. And I texted and said, you're not going to believe this, but I was able to listen to a sermon. So the sermon, evidently I was supposed to hear, and it was called No Receipts, if you want to look it up, because I know I've been having people say they're having trouble with my links that I'm trying to put in the description. So it's called No Receipts by T.D. Jakes, and it's on John, the Gospel of John, chapter 20, verses 19 through 31. And that's really long. I'm not going to read all that to you tonight. But it is about Christ appearing to the disciples, and then Christ appearing to the disciples the second time when Thomas is present. The first time Thomas wasn't present, the second time he was. And then the purpose of John's gospel, I think, is the last little piece of that. So that's what that's about. So, but most of what that sermon was talking about, or at least what it was speaking to me about, was peace. It's difficult to have peace, T.D. Jakes said, when you have uncertainty. Well, you know, this whole week that I've been here, my first week, I've got a knot in the pit of my stomach. I feel sick all the time. I feel unsettled. But there's all this uncertainty, right? Because I know that God sent me here, and yet I go, but did he? I know, right? Thick-headed. But I know that he did. But there's all this uncertainty about, like, well, why did he? And like, how, like, there's some things I know that he's told me, but I don't understand how these pieces fit together, or like what I'm supposed to do with them. You know, like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with these pieces. And so he was saying uncertainty will cause you to lose sleep and be sick with worry. And that's exactly where I was at. And then he said the thief is sent by demon spirits of hell to rob you of your peace. And it's the same peace that Jesus spoke to the wind and the waves. So when he was on the boat with the disciples and he was sleeping on the pillow, if you've watched all of these, you probably remember that we went over that sermon. And he was asleep on purpose. He was down below deck and he was on a pillow. And the storm came up, and it was really a bad one. You know, these were fishermen who were experienced. They'd been out on the sea many times. They've had lots of storms. This must have been a really super bad storm because they were scared. And they went down and got him and were like, how can you be sleeping? And he went up and told the wind and the waves, peace, be still. And they were. And that peace is the same peace that he wants to give us. And the uncertainty isn't peaceful. The uncertainty is not of God. God is not the God of confusion. So he was saying, you know, don't believe the lies of the devil. And we've talked about that too. Don't believe the lies. But uncertainty is just a lie. So, but this, in this gospel, it said Jesus had to prove to the believers that he rose from the dead. So T.D. Jakes was talking about that sometimes you have to take a second look, like Thomas, like they looked the first time. He really was Jesus. He was in different clothes. He wasn't in the grave clothes anymore. But he had the scars from where he had been wounded. And he said, your first look might be wrong. Your perspective might be wrong. And Jesus was going to ask the disciples to die over this. So he gave them a chance to know for sure that he rose from the dead. He was going to ask them to die for their faith. And he didn't want them questioning anything. He gave them the opportunity to know for sure, without a doubt. And, I believe that. But also with my move to Arizona, that's how I feel. Like I keep wavering, but he keeps telling me, and he keeps telling me, and he keeps answering prayer, and he keeps doing these amazing things that I've never had prayer answered like this before, and so immediate as soon as I ask, and there's the answer again and again and again and again and again. And I feel like I know that I know that I know that I am where he wants me to be. And so he said he doesn't look like what he's been through. And he was talking about, because, he wasn't in his grave clothes, he wasn't bloody and beaten anymore, but he still had the scars. And he talks about that we might not look like what we've been through. When you walk into church or walk into the grocery store or whatever, and people see you, you don't look like what you've been through. People don't see all that trauma. They don't see all your hurt and all your scars. But it's there, right? I mean, you've been through it, you lived through it, and you've conquered that, but it doesn't mean you didn't go through it. And so when he was wounding me, he was giving me receipts. I've been there, I've done that. I can encourage this person because I know what they're going through. And receipts give you tenacity. And I've been told on a number of occasions I am as tenacious as a bulldog. So the value of wounds is real. The wounds won't stop your destiny. You will get to your destiny in spite of your wounds. And he was talking about greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world, and the devil is a liar. And he was saying that the anointing comes when you preach the gospel. There's power in the cross. And in Galatians 6:16, it says you are a new creature. And in fact, let's look that up real quick, Galatians. Sorry, went too far. Galatians, where are you at? 1 Timothy, 2 Timothy, Titus, Philemon. Well, you guys, I've lost Galatians in here. All right, help me out. I'm doing it on the fly. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, Romans, 1 Corinthians, 2 Corinthians, Galatians. There they are. Okay, I found it. I knew where it was. All right, Galatians in 6 and 16. Sorry for looking at my finger. I know that's gross, but it's my Bible. 6:16 says, and as many as walk according to this rule, peace and mercy be upon them and upon the Israel of God. So it's talking about a blessing and a plea. The results of salvation is peace. It's the new relationship with God. And mercy is the forgiveness of all his sins and the setting aside of God's judgment. And that's the study notes from John MacArthur. So I'm going to read that again. The results of salvation is peace. Peace is the believer's new relationship to God. And mercy is the forgiveness of all his sins and the setting aside of God's judgment. So that was a really, really great sermon. And Shortly after that sermon, I started receiving messages from some folks. And so we will talk about that next time because it does look like my time is up. But that was a fantastic night on March 15th when I got that ding on my phone when I had no cell service or internet connection, Wi-Fi at all. And yet I could sit for an hour and a half and hear this sermon. And you better believe after that hour and a half, then I was just worshiping God because it was fabulous. And I was texting my friend because I was so excited. So we will stop there for tonight and reconvene at March 16th. I know we don't go very far that time, but we did just skip a whole week. So we're catching up to current day and time. And if you haven't subscribed, I wish that you would. Share it on social media. Leave me a comment if you would. All of that stuff helps the algorithm to just get this out to more people, which is ultimately the goal. So we want it to help you, and we want it to help and encourage others as well. So I am so glad you tuned in, and I will look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.